All right, so people are slowly starting to join, but we're gonna go ahead and get started here, just so we can stay on schedule, because I know all you guys have busy schedules here. So without further ado, my name is Scott Robin. I am a physical therapist here at React Physical Therapy. I work at the Lincoln Park location. We have 6 total locations, but this one's kind of right in the Ranch Triangle, right off the North and Clybourne stop off the Red Line. So it's got pretty good location. So if you ever guys want to come see me, you know where I am. So welcome everyone to my webinar about golf mobility and mechanics, avoiding injury and improving performance. I will be giving this presentation, but we also have my coworker, Summer Sanders, with us today, who specializes in golf physical therapy as well. She's going to be there to help any questions that you guys may have in the chat feature in Zoom. Anyways, I chose to do this presentation for a few reasons. First, the golf season obviously is right around the corner, and it's important to prepare your body for the demands of the sport in order to avoid injury. Not to mention, with the COVID-19 state quarantine rules, it's one of the only sports that we have to safely play while maintaining social distancing, so that's pretty awesome. Another reason why I chose to do my webinar on this topic is because of my history with club sports. Growing up, I was a competitive baseball player, didn't play much golf, but when I had to hang up the jersey, golf was the natural sport to transition to, given the similarity in mechanics. So here we are. So with this presentation, I wanted to give you guys a basic understanding of the full body mobility required for golf. I do think it is important for you guys to understand why you need the specific ranges of motion behind each of the major movements and each of the major joints. But I don't really want to bore you with too much science jargon, anatomy, and all that. I'd rather give you the tools to start working on the mobility that you need immediately, so you can get the most out of this presentation. So I will be including many exercises to help address what we cover that you guys can kind of play around with. And you can do it also as I go along in this presentation. And I'll be going relatively quickly just because you guys can download this PowerPoint and you can always review it. So I'd rather pack in as much information as I can to really make the most out of this. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the pillars of golf mobility and mechanics. Golf is a sport that's made up of a ton of different moving parts that all come together cohesively to take the tiny club face directly to the ball. In order to accomplish this, the golf swing requires specific mobility throughout many different joints and many different muscles of the body. From a performance perspective, if you don't have this baseline mobility, it will be harder for you to make solid ball contact in a consistent manner. And on top of that, you'll do so with less power. Aside from performance, if you don't have that baseline mobility needed in each of the major joints that we'll talk about, you're putting your body at major risk for injury. Simple as that. Our bodies are incredible compensators, which is a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. We'll always subconsciously find a way to move through the golf swing, even if we don't have the proper mobility. But in doing so, we'll end up putting way too much stress on structures that are not built to handle said stress. And if you're repeating this faulty swing over and over and over again for 4 hours and you play in a single round, by the end of the season, you're probably going to be paying the price. So that's why it's important to be proactive with your physical health, understand the swing demands in golf and the demands on your body, and train with intention. So as you can see in the screen share here, I came up with 5 different pillars that help kind of encapsulate what the golf swing requires. I know it doesn't cover everything, but this is a relatively short presentation, and the golf swing is extremely complex, as we know. So we got to address the basics right off the bat. So the 5 pillars that I came up with were core stability and the kinetic chain, hip hinging, which is what you know as the golf stance, hip mobility. We'll be talking about the different hip mobility specific to golf. So Most important is hip rotation and hip extension. You have to have shoulder and hip separation. In order to achieve that, there's a couple different things which I'll talk about, starting with spinal mobility, but also motor control. Even if you have the mobility, you need to know how to control your body through the range of motion, and also shoulder mobility. All right. So the first pillar, as I was talking about, is core stability and the kinetic chain. An important concept to grasp before understanding biomechanics of golf, and really the human or any human movement in general, is the idea of the kinetic chain. So turn your attention to the picture of the skeleton on the right here. I think you guys can see my cursor here. This picture helps us illustrate that chain links within our kinetic chain are the different joints throughout the body. For simplicity's sake, the major chain links include the ankles, the hips, the knees, the low back, shoulders, and the neck, as you can see all going throughout there. As you can see, each of the chain links serves a specific role, either stability or mobility. It says under each one of the whatever you want to call it, the titles on the side, it gives you which one and which role it is. When the chain links are doing their job perfectly and all working together, it helps produce healthy and pain-free movement. However, when one of the links is not doing its job, other nearby chain links are at high risk of degeneration and breaking down. With that being said, when training for golf, you need to train each joint in the manner in which it was anatomically designed. For example, the most important part of the kinetic chain, and you've probably heard this before, is the lumbar spine and the pelvis, which was created for stability, as you can see in the picture. It's truly the foundation for movement on the entire body. I will give you a little bit of an analogy here. So kind of continuing this concept, think of core stability in an analogy like this. Take a look at the photo on the right here. If you were to try to jump off, or if you were to try to jump as far as you can off 2 feet on concrete or a stable, firm surface, you get relatively far because the ground is stable, allows you to push off with leverage. But if you were to try to do the same exact thing and jump off a canoe on water as far as you can, you'd barely get anywhere. You wouldn't get far because the surface isn't stable and it would move out from under you and maybe get a foot or two. This is why our core was designed to be very stable. Our core was designed to be the firm surface for the rest of our body to be able to push off of. On the contrary, directly above and below the core are the hips and the thoracic spine. As seen in the picture in the last slide, there we go. So your thoracic spine is the mid back here. Your hips are this joint on the sides here. So as seen in the picture on the last slide, these joints are designed for mobility. So in order to train core stability, you need to be able to keep your low back and your pelvis stable from moving while you try to move other parts of your body, specifically the adjacent ones like your hips or your thoracic spine. So let's get started with some exercise. I'm putting pictures down for all of the exercises that we're going to be covering today, but I'll be demonstrating them in video. I'm just doing that so it will make it easier and quicker for you guys to come back to this PowerPoint. Like I said, you can download it on our website to get a quick refresher rather than having to scroll through an hour-long presentation video. That would be kind of a lot less effective. So I'm going to take you guys into the other room here, and either you can follow along or just watch. Either way is fine. Let me try to stop sharing the screen here. Okay. Let's go into my little layer over here. So the first exercise that we're going to be doing is called the dead bug. You guys might have heard of it before. Let's see if you can see. Might have heard of it before. It's a pretty foundational exercise in many different training, but it's perfect to kind of encapsulate what we were talking about just before with core stability and allowing your body, like your hips and your arms, to move around that stable, firm surface. So what you're going to do is come to a mat, ground any flat surface. Lie down. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to get your low back flat onto the ground. So what you're going to do is press down into the ground. Another way that you can kind of learn that is you can take your hand, you place it under your low back, and you press down into the ground. That's going to help turn on your core and try to keep it a little bit stable. It also gives you a little bit of a tool, because you'll know if your backs are drifting off the ground, you'll know that you're not keeping your low back stable. So, in the presentation, I'm going to show one version of this exercise, but there's a bunch of different ones. So let's go over the basics. So, you come up in a 90-90 position. You're moving your hips 90 degrees, knees 90 degrees, arms straight up in the air. Pressing your low back down to the ground, activating your core here. The first and easiest progression is simply taking your right hand, lifting straight over your head, not moving anything else in your body, holding this up. The key with this is to make sure that your ribs aren't flaring up off into the air. So watch, I'll do it wrong right now. So here's wrong. I don't know if you can see, but I'm flaring my ribs because I'm not activating my core, keeping it stable. So that's the first progression. Second progression is a little bit harder. Keeping your knee at this 90-degree angle. All you're going to be doing is lowering your leg, tapping the ground, coming up, tapping the other. Simple as that. Making sure that your low back doesn't come off the ground. It's going to want to. It's going to want to do this. I don't know if you can see. Now I can fit my hand under my back. I don't want that. I want it flat against the ground. So you're here. If you've mastered that one, the next progression would be to kind of start combining all of it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your right hand, left leg, do an alternating movement. So you tap while lifting this arm down, keeping your low back stable. This could seem like an easy exercise, but if you actually focus on what you need to focus on, I promise it'll be hard. Here, really locking that in. Lastly, the hardest progression, which if you can't keep your low back stable, there's no point in doing the hardest progression, but I'll show you guys, I'm sure some of you are more advanced than others. So, you hold your arms up in this direction. Same concept, you're going to straighten this leg as far as you can. So you're here, straightening, you can either tap or just hover right over the ground. Come straight up, making sure your low back and your ribs are all pressed down into the ground. Just like that. It's a great way to warm up before you start your round, or just straighten it home. All right, let's get back to the presentation here. So the next pillar that I'm going to be talking about, or the second pillar that we'll talk about, is called the hip hinge. Learning the hip hinge is extremely important because it's the starting position for every golf swing. I mean, it's vital that pretty much every athletic sport that you play, a basketball stance, hockey stance, anything, honestly. So the concept of the hip hinge builds off of the information that we learned from the last slide and the kinetic chain. So in order to perform a perfect hip hinge, you need to be able to keep your back straight and in a neutral position, just like you would as you're standing up. All you're doing is leaning forward, and all while you're just moving only at the hips. So your low back shouldn't move at all. It really should just be your hips. As you can see in the top right corner here, Dustin Johnson shows us a solid hip stance, or a hip hinge stance, where his back is straight, his hips are pushed back. By doing this, not only does he protect his lower back from unnecessary stress, he also activates his glute muscles. To give you an idea of what not to do, look at the picture in the bottom right. This skeleton on the right of this image is performing the exercise wrong, as he's not keeping his low back in a neutral position, but instead rounding right here or flexing forward. This puts a ton of stress on his lumbar discs or her lumbar discs and ligaments, which over time most likely won't hold up. So what you want to do is be the skeleton in the middle who is maintaining a small arch in his low back and loading his glute muscles. The glute muscles are among the most powerful muscles in the body, where all good golfers get all of their distance on their strokes. So it's crucial to have this baseline mobility and be able to own a hip hinge in order to tap in the power of your glute muscles. So let's take you back into my layer here. So this is where, if you guys do have a stick, a broomstick, a golf club, anything, that would be awesome. And then you can also go to a wall. Those are the two cues. It's all you need. It's pretty simple. So I have this mirror behind me. So what you do is you take, this is a little stick mobility. You're going to place it behind your back. You're going to start it right at about your sacrum, your tailbone level, and have it come all the way up to your back. Notice that my sacrum is touching it. There's a tiny little bit of space between my low back and the stick. My mid-back is touching it, and also my head. Throughout this movement, all points of contact should maintain on that stick. If you don't, it's telling you that you're doing movement wrong. Also, come up, I have a mirror here, but take any wall or flat surface that you can use, because that can give you a cue to push your hips back. So what it's going to look like is take a few steps, maybe 1 to 1 foot out from the wall, keeping the club on the back of your spine, and you're hinging forward at the hips, pushing your hips back into the wall. You want to finish with your hips touching the wall. Notice that my head, my mid-back, my sacrum are all touching the spine, or touching the golf swing. I'll do it wrong, just so you guys can see it. So here's one version of doing it wrong. As you can see, I lost contact here. My low back is now touching the stick. So that shows kind of like the skeleton that I was just showing you. It shows that you're putting way too much stress on your spine. If you add rotation in that, it's not good over a long period of time. If you do it for a little bit, it's not that bad, but we're investing here. So you're coming back, making sure that your butt is going straight back, even not going one side more than the other. All right, we're going to go back to the presentation because I got a bunch of other stuff that I want to show you. So now let's talk about hip mobility, specifically, like I said, rotation and extension. So as seen in the kinetic chain slide before, we know the hip joint was designed to be mobile. In fact, most of the twisting of your lower body in the backswing and the foreswing originate from the hips. If you have bad hip mobility, your low back and your knees, which are both designed to not move much, now have to pick up all the slack, and that can result in injury and bad performance because, like I said, they weren't designed to be like that. So hip mobility needed for golf, like I said, includes hip internal rotation and external rotation and hip extension. I tried to show this in this photo here where the green arrow indicates internal rotation, the red arrow indicates external rotation. As you can see in the backswing, which is the first 3 images here, he needs, or any golfer in the back leg is going to need internal rotation of your hip, external rotation of the front hip. So internal, 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 external, 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 right? When you go through the downswing, you'll end up hitting neutral in both, but going forward, everything flips. So now in the back leg, you need external rotation, and the front leg, you need internal rotation. I know these concepts are kind of hard to grasp, but that's why we gave you a PowerPoint so you can come back to take a look at it. I'm trying to fly through as much as possible here. And as you can see, at the ending point where his hips are turned towards his target, he has full hip extension right here, which helps you take stress off your low back. And he has full hip internal rotation in his front leg right here. So that allows you to square your body up towards the target. Okay, so let's go back. Let's work on this. Let me stop sharing. This exercise, it's one of my favorite exercises because you can kill two birds with one stone. You can get both legs at the same time, but it's not the easiest. So maybe not everyone will be able to do it, and there are modifications, but just for the sake of time, we're going to show this guy right here. So it's called a hip 90-90. What you're going to do, come on the ground, get in a crab sit position, meaning spread your legs out a little bit here. Stay tall with your spine, chest up. First thing you're going to do, bring this knee inwards, that knee outwards. So it looks something like this. As you can tell, it's called hip 90-90 for a reason. There's a hip 90 here, hip 90 right here. This front leg, I have hip external rotation as we're talking about. This leg right here is internal rotation. What you can do, trying to keep your back tall, because if you don't keep your back tall, you're not going to be doing the exercise, but you're getting mobility in this. So you're just going to alternate back and forth, staying tall, not rounding like this, stay tall. Pretty simple. Some modifications. So if that's too easy, what you can do, I'll show you to make a little bit more external rotation. If you turn this way, what you can do is if you keep your body tall, you can sit forward through this front hip to get a little bit extra external rotation in this front hip. You can use a little bit of a handheld assist here, and then push up, keeping your back straight. If you're rounding, you're not even getting any hip mobility. So you really need to keep that back in a neutral position that you're talking about before. Another thing you can do to work on internal rotation is with this back leg, if you lean forward just a little bit, try to keep your knee on the ground and lift your back leg up in the air. I, for one, have terrible hip internal rotation. I'm cramping like no other. But for some people, it'll be easier. Anyways, playing around with these movements can really help you get that rotation that you need in your spine. In your hips. Next two are going to be hip extension, which is what you need at the end of your golf swing as you're coming through here. This is hip extension right here. You need that. So how we're going to address that is twofold. Take a pad. If you have good knees, then you don't need it. Get in a half kneeling position here. Just like this. Leg forward, 90-90 position. The key with this one that everyone botches it, if you're not familiar with training, is what you want to do is you want to try to take the pelvis and tuck it under you, almost like you're tucking your tailbone under you. That way you can get the stretch on the muscle in the knee, which is your hip flexors in the front. So what's going to look like? Tucking your pelvis, and then if you already don't feel a stretch, you can come forward just a tiny bit, and you should feel get them on the stretch right here. You don't have to go very far. You just want to avoid doing anything like this. If you start extending your lower back, I don't even feel a stretch in my hip. It's doing nothing for me. It's just a waste of time. So you really focus on tucking that pelvis under you, coming forward, sitting there about a minute, 3 sets, to try to get a little bit of stretch. So what that is doing is it's stretching the hip flexors in the front in order to give you that mobility. But you need to be able to control that hip extension. So after you do a hip flexor stretch, you can do an exercise as simple as a bridge. So you might have seen a bridge before. It's really popular in yoga, Pilates. You're working on the opposite muscles, which are in your butt. Let me make sure that you guys can see me. So what you do is get your feet about halfway up towards your butt. You don't want it too far, you don't want it too close. Nice and comfortable. All you're going to do is take your hips right in the front and you're going to try to push straight up through your hips. squeezing your glute muscles, trying to push your hip extension. It's going to look something like this. Simple, but it can be botched very easily. And then you control it on the way down. Just like that. Making sure that you don't overarch in your low back. So, kind of like the dead bug I did before, you're not going to be doing this. This is doing nothing. I'm not keeping my core stable. I'm using my glutes. They're just coming along for the ride. So you keep everything tight here. Press up through your hips. And then come back down, squeezing your glutes. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm going fast. Summer is there to answer any questions if you guys have any. But let's keep it coming. So now for more of the upper body, the fun part. Next pillar would be hip and shoulder separation. So hip and shoulder separation is the ability to independently move your thoracic spine or your mid-back from your hips. You can see this concept on the picture on the right. The yellow sticks show the position of the hips and the shoulders. For this guy, it's on the back, so it's showing here's your position of your shoulders or your thoracic spine, and here's the position of your hips. As you can see, the hips and the shoulders are not connected throughout the swing. At certain points they are, but for most part they aren't, which allows us to coil up our trunk and kind of release it. Hip and shoulder separation creates hip rotational power by stretching all the core muscles and allowing them to release. Kind of similar to like a rubber band. You're using some of the elastic properties in your muscles, but it also gives you a little bit more space and to rotate around, which creates more of a leverage in your pendulum as you're swinging. It's the same concept seen in many other sports. Take baseball swing, take a baseball throw, take a hockey shot, boxing punch, tennis swing. It's all the same concept. This is now applied to golf within a slightly separate manner. So not only does it include or require hip thoracic and hip rotation, but like before, you also have to have the control or the coordination in order to control it all. It's important, like I did write on this, it's important also in the top swing, the top of the backswing, as well as the transition of the backswing to the downswing. I'm not going to go into firing the hips and all that stuff because it's too much right now. We're just sticking to mobility. So let's go ahead and start working on it. So the first one we're going to work on, as you can see, is just the mobility of your thoracic spine, which is this rib cage I'm trying to show you with my cursor here. It's about the mid-back. As I was saying before, the thoracic spine is designed to be mobile. It's designed to rotate while your lumbar spine stays stable. So it's important to be able to move through that and have that mobility. So let's go and take a look at these drills. Let's see. So, first one is the one that's on a wall. I mean, you don't even need a wall, but it helps you get a little bit of a cue. I would prefer it. I mean, the walls are everywhere. So, what you're going to do is you're going to come up to the wall. Let me get this a little bit better. You're going to have the leg that's closest to the wall down on the ground, hip in a 90-90 position. That allows you to keep your pelvis stable and your lumbar spine stable. What you do is you take both arms in front here, and what you're going to do is you're going to rotate open with your head, following your head because your neck is part of it. Trying to rotate as far as you can, just like that. The important part is that you're trying to keep your pelvis from moving backwards. So I'll show you what's wrong, or I'll show you how to do it wrong. So here is doing it wrong. I'm actually just getting rotation from other parts of my body. I'm not focusing on and dissociating that mid-back. Here we go. A way that you can work on it, if you have one of those small foam roll, some type of ball, you can place it between the wall and you have a yoga block. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press this leg into the wall. It's kind of a bad angle here. I'm pressing it in. That kind of forces you to keep your lower body or your lower half stable as you open up. So if you do find yourself struggling, keeping this locked into place, grab something, it can be very powerful too. Same concept, we're going to be working on thoracic rotation here, just a different exercise. Now, what you're going to do is get into, you're going to a firm surface here, get on your hands and knees, just like this, hips, or your knees under your hips, shoulders over your hands here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your right hand first, place it behind your head, lock that in. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this elbow here, and you're going to rotate it under, through the other side, threading the needle, as we like to call it, as far as you can. You want to try, like all the other things, you can see the common theme, keeping your low back from moving, all the rotation coming from higher up. Rotating, rotating, rotating as far as you can. And then, coming up. Opposite direction. As far as you can. Notice that my head is following it the whole time as I come down. And you can go straight back into the next repetition. Opening up. Beautiful. Just like that. Okay. So that was thoracic rotation, meaning any rotation of your sternum and your shoulders, forward and back. It's obvious that we need that in this golf swing. The next thing also that I didn't mention is thoracic extension, which is needed in the hip hinge, as we talked about before, but it's also needed in the end of the swing and the follow through. So let me show you what I mean by that. Oh, it's kind of hard to see because of the lighting here in the window, but bear with me. So at the end of the golf swing, kind of show you here, you're going to need thoracic rotation to follow through up into this point rather than stopping here. If you can follow through in your foreswing here, it's going to be a lot more natural. You see all the good players on the PGA Tour really have good thoracic extension as well. So, easy way to work on it. The only tool you need is a wall. So, you want to stand about 2 feet, 2.5 feet away from the wall. You're going to place your hands up on the wall. And what it's going to do, it's kind of working on the golf hip hinge as we talked about, the athletic stance at the same time. So, kind of those two birds with one stone. So what you're going to do is you're going to let your hips fall back, keeping the arch in your back. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to drop your chest as far down to the ground. I'm pretty flexible, as you can probably see. Not everybody has that mobility, but the more that you work on it, the better you'll be. So I'll show you a little bit more here. Hinging your hips back, dropping your chest to the ground as far as you can. You might get some cracks and pops. This one's good for anybody that has a desk job, anybody that's sitting long periods of the day, long periods throughout the day. We punched here, trying to reverse that, get you into an athletic position, dropping the hips back, dropping the chest down. All right. Let's get this presentation going again here. One last thing before we do that. So, as I was talking about before, you also, like for me, for example, I have really good mobility, but I don't have good motor control. So even if you have that good mobility, you need to be able to control and dissociate your body in order to have the swing work at its best. So, what you're going to do you're going to take your golf club, kind of see my hips, apologize for this. So take your golf club, golf broom, or not golf broom, your broom, anything you have in your house, it works, really simple. So you're going to hold it up on top of your arms, just like this, in a level position. So this tells me, as I was talking about before, this tells me where my mid-back position is. So with this, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to try to keep your pelvis from moving. And you're going to only move the stick. So what it's going to look like this, make a little bit more sense, is you're going to rotate open. Notice that my hips are not moving. Go the other way, because you need both ways in the golf swing. Notice that I'm not rotating my hips as well. I'm only rotating my upper half as I go through. Here's another angle of it. Rotating, might be moving a little, but trying your best. Something that can work good for you, if you're struggling with that concept, take a ball, take something that you can put in between your knees, squeeze it in between your knees. That's going to activate some of the muscles in your lower half. That's going to keep you more stable as you rotate open. If you have the supplies around your house, might as well, it's pretty easy. Next one, you're taking your lower half now. It's the opposite. Because when you start your downswing, you're supposed to be moving your hips first, having your upper half trail. So it's important to be able to independently move your hips. So what you're going to do is simply rotate your hips open, keeping your shoulders as stable as possible. Show it from the side here. Rotating open. Just like this. Going nice and slow, really owning it. You're also not supposed to be doing a lot of sway, this way, this way. It's front to back motion. Okay, beautiful. All right, almost done here. So like I was saying, I know I'm going through a lot right now. I can hear myself talking fast. But there's pictures of everything. Goes in line. So you could just download the PowerPoint, come back to it, see it all. Even in this one, it helps illustrate it a little bit more of the lower half, is I put a stick in my belt loop. That way I was able to see a little bit more hip rotation. Okay. Lastly, we're going to go over shoulder mobility. So we got Tiger right here kind of demonstrating that to us. So shoulder mobility may be an underappreciated aspect of the golf swing, but it can be important. If your shoulders don't have the two motions listed right here, crossbody adduction, which is this motion here, and external rotation, which is this motion. You can see, I know it's small. External rotation is this. Crossbody adduction is here. If you don't have those two bits of mobility, it can impact your club path and your club path as you make your way through the downswing, which can essentially dictate if you're hitting the ball straight or not. In addition, if you don't have said mobility, your body might compensate at other joints, such as your low back, which can result in pain and degeneration. As you can see, there's a theme. Every time, most biomechanics, if you're doing it right, not only are you going to have good performance, you're also having good injury prevention. Anyways, so as listed above, you need essentially near equal amounts of both of these mobility directions in both shoulders, similar to the hips, because you need, as you can see in the backswing, you're getting external rotation in green, this back arm, and you're getting cross-body adduction of your front arm here. Same thing, even as he comes down, but now, once you get to the follow-through, we got a little bit of a flip-flop here. So the back arm here, external rotation, front arm is cross-body adduction. So let's get to it. Pretty simple here. First one, simply working on that cross-body adduction. Just take one arm, cross it straight across your body, take the other arm, lock it, pull towards your body, and you should feel a stretch back in your shoulder here, in your lats and your rotator cuff, some of the muscles in between your shoulder blade and your spine should stretch it all out, just like that. A variation, if you want to try to get more specific to this region, if you try to pull your shoulder blade back, lock it towards, like you're trying to pinch your shoulder blades together, and then pull over, you'll get a little bit more isolation to here. You can play around with it, see where you're restricted, and that's where you kind of guide yourself. Let your body guide you. All right, last one. Last but not least. Sorry if you guys are getting dizzy. All right, last one is going to be working on external rotation mobility, which is this direction, which is what you need as you come up in this backswing, as you come up back here, and also as you follow through, you need it on the other shoulder. So we're going to try to nail it, both arms at the same time. As the same theme, grab your trusted wall here, come up to your trusted wall. What you're going to do, similar to what we did with the stick, you want to have your head touching the wall, about in between your shoulder blades, about kind of low back, sacrum or tailbone area, right here. You could take a few steps out. I know you can't see that on the video. Just take your feet, step them out. It's going to make it easier for you to accomplish that. So, what you're going to do, first thing, arm at 90-90 position here, up in this direction. And all you're going to do, keeping all the contact points, my head, my low back, and my mid back, you're going to rotate open, trying to bring the back of your hand to the wall. Try to feel which arm feels different. Try to find your restrictions. Let your body guide you. Like I said, I have a lot of mobility. You might not be able to get your arm all the way to the wall, but that's okay. Because if you continue working on it, you don't have to do a stretch per se to get a mobility deficit, or sorry, a mobility gain. So even if you're getting here, you're really trying to work at it. If you do this every day, you'll see results eventually. Anyways, that's the first step. Come here. If you can, and that's easy for you, we're going to make it a little bit harder. So what you're going to do, arms up at your side, external rotation on the wall, and then here, we're going to press up overhead. It's even difficult for me. I won't get all the way. Keeping all contact points, keeping the back of your wrist, keeping your elbow, keeping your low back, head, and mid-back on the wall. So the full thing is going to look a little bit like this. So you come up, wall, here, come down, do one more rep, up, all the way, coming down, here. So that's it for a lot of the mobility. Let me just go back here. Perfect timing here. Sharing my screen. Okay. So we got those two. Like I said, I posted pictures. I'll make it a little easier for you. So that's all I got for you today. Again, my name is Scott Robin, PT at the Lincoln Park React. I listed the number below. As you can tell right now, we don't have anybody in our clinic, but we are open. Despite all this, we're trying our best to stay safe. We're taking a ton of different measures. I don't have my mask on right now because no one else is here, but we are wearing N95 masks. We're only doing one-on-one sessions, meaning we're not going to have a packed clinic here. Generally, only one therapist will be here at the same time, at least at Lincoln Park. So we are open. We are offering free screens. So even if you don't know if you want PT and you don't know if you need it, come in, try it, risk-free. 15-minute free screen. It's like a fourth of an evaluation. And we can kind of go from there, check your insurance, see if you're right for PT. If you know you need PT, you can call and schedule an eval. It's pretty simple. As of, I think it was 2018 in January or 2019, there is what's called direct access. So what that means is you don't have to go through all the hoops that you normally have to. All you have to do is call us up. We'll check your insurance. You don't need to get a script from your doctor. That's what I meant. I forgot to say that. So it's super easy to come in. And yeah, we can go from there. I'm going to stay open here for about 2 to 3 minutes, seeing if everyone has any questions. I know Summer's here. Thank you for helping me out during this presentation. But if you have any questions, we'll be here to stick around. If not, you guys are free to go about your day. Hope you guys were able to gain something from this presentation. I know it was a lot, but like I said, I wanted you guys to get the most out of it. And you can always return. You can also email me anytime if you have any questions, and let me know, and we can go from there. Thank you all for all the nice words. I appreciate that. If you go to our website, Steve, you can find the PowerPoint. Let me get you the exact link. David, you will be able to see the video over and over again as much as you want. It will be posted right next to the PowerPoint. Ashley just typed that in, and you'll be able to find it there. And you'll also be able to see, this is obviously, I don't know if you've gotten a lot of the emails. There's a ton of different webinars going on. Everyone in the company is trying to pitch in here. I just chose golf just due to personal interest. So there's a lot there. Stick around for another 2 minutes here. So if you have any questions, let me know. The sequence, to answer David's question he asked, is the sequence of the exercises relevant? I'd probably go in the order for this presentation. I'd probably stick in that order, like especially in the hip extension one. I don't know if you remember that, where I was on one knee leaning forward, and the next one I did a bridge. Those are a good way to go back to back with that, because you're stretching first and then you're activating the opposite muscle. So you're learning how to control that movement. But other than that, I mean, I would say to go through how I went through it, just because I went from the most foundational and I went all the way down to more specific. Like the core stability is way more important than shoulder. So yes, I would start with doing a dead bug, the first exercise I showed you on my back. So yeah, I would say the sequence is relevant. Good question. All right, I'm going to end. Thank you guys all for tuning in here.